The Visual Arts and Media Studies Division is very, very happy to see that such a great turnout tonight for our 26th, that's right, 26 Artists in Residence kickoff here tonight. Before we formally begin the talk, I want to make a couple of kind of obvious recommendations. Silence your iPhone, your smartphone, your dumb phone. Right? We who speak in front of crowds for a living are very deeply troubled by the sound of a phone going off, even if we like that tune that it plays. I'm going to give a very brief introduction to our artist in residence, Abe Morell, tonight. And following my intro, Abe is going to speak and present his work. He's a much better speaker than I am, so you should be happy that my remarks are going to be brief this evening. Following Abe's presentation, he will take questions from the floor, and he's a very patient and a very generous Q&A kind of guy, and so I'm sure that you'll have those questions for him later this evening. On the behalf of the students, the faculty, and the staff of the Visual Arts and Media Studies Division, I'm happy to welcome you to this kickoff event of our 26th Artist in Residence, Abelardo Morell. I do want to thank the Board of Trustees, some of whom may be present this evening, as well as our Vice President of Instruction, Dr. Robert Bell, who is not, but who is new to our campus and much appreciated for his support. And of course, I'd like to thank our President, Dr. Mark Rocha. Dr. Rocha recently inquired whether I would be participating in this year's Pasadena Marathon, clearly mistaking me for a much younger man. Thanks for that, Dr. Rocha, and likewise thanks for your support of the Visual Arts Division. I would be remiss not to recognize my former immediate boss, Alex Kritzelis, whose leadership over the course of, how many years, Alex? Where are you sitting? Too many. Over the course of too many years, led this division to the prominence it holds not only on campus, but within the larger community of Southern California and in the world of art education. Alex, I've tried in a small way to model your leadership. To the extent that I have been successful in the least, it is due to your example. If we could have an applause for Alex Kritzelis. I'd like to thank our faculty, both full-time and adjunct, for their dedication to the profession of teaching and their work as artists. If I might here cite the members of this year's Artist in Residence team, our gallery director, Brian Tucker, Professor Rick Ozaka, as well, there's Rick, and most especially a photographer and a genuine young runner, Professor Melanie Wilhide, who, Professor Wilhide, has spent way too much time in my office or otherwise communicating with me via phone and email. To the extent that this residency can be considered anyone's baby, the honor is yours, Melanie. My deepest thanks to you. There are many others worthy of thanks, but I finally must recognize two staff members, the first being Mr. Charles Jones. Charles, are you here? Okay. Where is over here? Where are you? At the door. He's at the door. If the art gallery were somehow inserted into the movie The Great Escape, Charles is the scrounger, the gallery go-to guy. It is difficult to imagine the work of assembling the installation going more quickly or more smoothly without Charles's help. Not the least, I want to acknowledge the selfless dedication of the division secretary, Miss Ni Trong. Ni is the true unsung hero of VAMS. I cannot say enough to express my sincere appreciation for her contribution. And this is where it gets sappy. What do artists do? They learn, they teach, they expand and explore, and in their work, crystallize experience, both theirs and ours. They engage and embrace tradition as much as they reject it. In this course, redefining that tradition. They contradict and affirm. They amuse and they frighten. Artists propose to create, and as such, their work becomes a series of existential acts, bringing, in the bard's words, to airy nothingness a local habitation and a name. Above all, artists are serious, purposeful. To make art is to participate in a culture of change. The artists, its change agents. Art's capital is the work, and its profit is a revelation at the very center of the human condition. Roland Barthes' punctum, a piercing. Bernini's puckish angel who packs a punch. Yeats's terrible beauty. Morell's views of the Brooklyn Bridge and of the Tuscan Hills, and I know these places. I know them to my deep heart's core. Our 26th artist-in-residence, Boston-based photographer Abelardo Morell, is internationally renowned as an innovator in fine art photography. Born in Havana in 1948, Morell moved to the United States in 1962. He earned a BA from Bowdoin College in 1977 and an MFA from Yale School of Art in 1981. He was awarded an honorary Doctor of Fine Arts degree from Bowdoin College in 1997. Morell is best known for dreamlike images created using a self-designed camera obscura. In addition to these images, the PCC exhibition includes recent work in which Morell focuses his camera on the printed pages of books. Remarkable in both pictorial and conceptual terms, Morell's work touches upon many disciplines, including physics, history, topography, and architecture. Morell has been the subject of one-person exhibitions at the Art Institute of Chicago, the Detroit Institute of Arts, the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, and internationally in collections in Argentina, Brazil, and dozens of other museums and galleries worldwide. His work is represented in scores of public collections, including the Metropolitan Museum in New York, the Museum of Modern Art, the Getty, the National Gallery of Canada, and in London, the Victoria and Albert Museum. His photography is the subject of several books and exhibition catalogs, including Camera Obscura, Abelardo Morell, Face to Face, Photographs at the Gardner Museum, and A Book of Books. Morell has received a multitude of awards, including the International Center for Photography Infinity Award and a John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Fellowship. In addition to his exhibition in the PCC Gallery, Abelardo Morell will spend the week of March 19th through 23rd, I'll tell you where in a second, on campus, during which time he will present a public lecture, create a photograph for the PCC Art Collection with the assistance of the Huntington Library, and meet with PCC students and create a camera obscura. All gathered, I'm pleased now to stop talking and honored to present to you Abe Morell. Thank you.
Thanks. Am I on? Yeah. Can we dim? This is really way too bright. Thank you, Joe. And Melanie has been amazing. I think she can run the whole city if she wanted to. So I'm not saying anything new. And a pleasure to be invited here. And I honestly have to say I'm really impressed with the place. Walking around and seeing the kinds of students that live here. As I was telling your president, that it's both energetic and hopeful. It's the world that I want to live in. So I'm extremely just pleased to be part of this place, and it's a beautiful area too. So thank you for inviting us. And I hope that you have some questions afterwards. You can probably go lower on the lights. Someone said, love the art in you, not you in the art. So I like that. Am I still visible? Oh, lower. Thank you. That's good. I'm going to show a lot of work, including work that I made 3-4 days ago in Joshua Tree. So this is a real sort of retrospective look at things. And just a little biographical background. I was born, as Joe mentioned, in Havana, Cuba. This is the town that I grew up in. I mean, this is what I knew until I was 14. And thinking about this place lately, I mean, I grew up a block from the beach. So, and during a lot of turmoil, revolution came, and it was not easy to be in the middle of all that. But the idea of that sea being sort of this infinity a block away, I think helped shape something in me about ambition. So I show it because it's important to know where someone came from and how they developed. So this is me at 14. If you know anything about Latin American literature or history or politics, the revolution came, and it was very difficult for some people. We were not rich. We were actually pretty poor, but my father was going to be killed. So he thought it would be a good idea to leave. So we came from, Cuba to New York City in 1962, which is a freaky thing to do. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but my sister, my mother, my father, and I came, and I did not speak English. It was one of those, oh, we're going to be in a different place. So I'm going to show you some early pictures that I made then. I bought something called a brownie. This is much before your time, but sort of the equivalent of a point and shoot, back then. And early pictures of our family life. This is our first snow, Central Park. Anyway, I was 13 or 14. My father and mother, who worked really hard. My father took care of 5 buildings in the city. It was Dickensian. We lived in a basement apartment with no windows. Hard work, yet we felt we had a promising new place. We loved the idea of, I know there are a lot of politicians out there going freedom, 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 freedom. We actually felt it. And the idea of being free to do what we wanted was seemingly available. This is our living room. I made this picture. Of course, my mother wonders, where's the person in the picture? and it wasn't until about 6-7 years later that I discovered a woman named Diane Arbus. And if you don't know her, Google her, because she's one of the most important American artists that we've had. Myself, my sister, my cousin. This is Thanksgiving in this basement apartment. So, in an interesting turn of events, someone from Bowdoin College in Maine came to my high school. My English was still fairly poor, but I was trying really hard. Anyway, this person, under the idea of affirmative action, Bowdoin wants to get people who are not, those white dudes who come from prep schools. So they said, you should apply, and I got in. And it was a big, huge turn of events for me. I mean, to leave New York City to be in a small, wonderful college. So, so that's this guy here, and I became this guy here. That was 1967 when I went there, and those were a crazy period in American life. But I literally became an artist. I took a photography course, and I knew right away. I was lucky to know right away that I really wanted to do that forever. So I didn't look back. I just knew I didn't know how I was going to make a living, but I knew I would make pictures. So the pictures that I made early on were really quite nutty. I wanted pictures of surrealism, of craziness, and you know, if a shrink looked at them and said, "Well, you're alienated," of course, you know, life is kind of strange for you. So I did seek strangeness everywhere. I'm going to forward way ahead now. When my wife Lisa and I had a child, and it's not news. Everyone has children. But for me, as an artist, it was a real crossroad. The work that I did in graduate school was a lot of street work, sort of like what you saw there. But I sort of had this feeling that maybe I was sort of reborn in an artistic way when Brady was born. Why not try to make pictures that were more emotional, more of things nearby? So I changed everything, cameras, the sense of things, the sense of emotional contact with Brady and Laura, and Brady and Lisa, and this chaotic world of childhood. And it was very, very important facet of my life. I'm going to show you a little snippet of those early days. Things changed dramatically when my son Brady was born. You know, the shit hit the fan. I was a new father. I felt excited and depressed at the same time. Here I am at home with a baby, and what? I mean, make baby pictures? Oh no! I was totally confused. And slowly it dawned on me that I should just deal with what the present was. And that's what I did. I decided that what was around me would become the subject. And I went to school at a very sort of hip, edgy school, Yale, and, you know, too cool for words, you know. Not the kind of stuff that I began to do was not quite that stuff, but it was dear to my heart. So I began to look at the world as if I were Brady, as if the world was from a child's point of view. So these are some of the early pictures I made. Even close-ups of, you know, what we all know. I know everyone had this ball. I'm sure of it. There's a great movie called Citizen Kane, and Rosebud was that guy's thing. You know, portraits, things that I would never have thought of making. You know, a portrait of a milk bottle. But it was interesting to me to make pictures of things that I knew that were, you know, solidly in front of me, rather than abstract ideas about, you know, art. Then a lot of these childhood objects began to make me think about other little still lifes at home that I could make. But I was, you know, as a good father, I was stuck at home. So I couldn't go to see a waterfall, but I could see water pouring out of a pot. You know, and you know what? It's quite amazing when you start looking closely to what's around you, how different and surprising things are. So I began to sort of make long exposures of very ordinary events around the house, including water, and then water could do all kinds of things, like an alphabet. Or the way when we were children, we looked at things like this, right? We were like, oh, and your mother is saying, gotta get to school, and you were like, wow, look at that, right? Well, as an artist, I guess you can give yourself permission to say, look at that, and then have a camera. If a lawyer starts doing that too much, they'll put him away. Then the optical, sort of the water pictures began to sort of suggest a nature of water that had optical components, like this glass of wine became a very rudimentary camera in a way. We're seeing a lens, a crude lens, look at a window. So I thought that would be interesting. How about my own optics? By the way, if you wear glasses, you get this picture. So it's sort of a secret amongst glass wearers, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I see people nodding. So it was a very interesting period of my life where I thought, why don't I fool around with the sort of the nature of seeing itself, you know, with cameras, including a self-portrait with me being seen. I'm up there somewhere. You can't see it. Anyway, I'm being photographed by my camera, I'm being photographed by me. Interesting optical games. Then in 1991, I made by the way, I had begun to teach at a place called Massachusetts College of Art. And for several years before this period, I taught photography by converting, you know, rooms into camera obscuras and things like that, just to show them the very properties of photography and how beautiful the idea of photography was and how simple and how mysterious at once it was. So I made this picture of a very expensive camera called Martini Rossi. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a very famous Italian camera. Anyway, cheap box with a cheap lens, yet it yields something absolutely pristine and pure and gorgeous. And this picture led me to think, wow, look at this. The photography itself could be a subject. So I thought, okay, maybe what I've been doing with my classes, which was to turn a whole classroom into a camera obscura, maybe that's a subject as well. And essentially, a camera obscura is any size room, a small box or a room this big, with a small opening looking out onto something bright, you know, a bright scene outside. Nature, I mean, it came with a place. It's not something some guys in Sony said, oh, let's imagine that. I'm not religious at all, but it's sort of a God-given thing that the physics of the world works in a way that a small opening looking out in a small in a room that's dark, looking out into a scene will project an upside-down image of the world. And so I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to try to make a picture of that? In art history, people talk about camera obscuras all the time, but I'd never seen a photograph of the event itself. So I began to make such things. You know, I got invited to friends' houses who had cool views, like the Empire State Building, poke a small hole looking out, and then this image would come into the room. Because it's visible, but it's quite dim. The exposures back then were as long as 8 hours, which is, I like the idea of a working class number, you know. So, and also I could set it up in the morning, walk around New York, see a movie, have lunch, you know, all that, and come back. But it was fascinating. I felt like I had discovered photography in a way because I had never seen this kind of usage of it. This is my father and an assistant in a very large apartment in New York City, and that's the image that came in. Now, mind you, this is just, at this point, just a hole, okay, that brings that in, which is a remarkable gift. And it's so weird that not that many people really know what this is. This is Times Square, Italy. I went back to Cuba in 2002 after 40 years. This is Havana. And this is a very ancient photograph. In fact, one of the earliest pictures ever made, 1840. Photography was officially invented in 1839 by a couple of French people, especially Daguerre, and then a British photographer named Fox Talbot. And Fox Talbot, in 1840, from his place, a place called Laycock Abbey, made this picture from a second floor. And I was invited to photograph in his house in London, in England. So I decided to try to find that room, and I found it. So I made a camera obscura of that view, and it just felt like I could have died then. It was like, okay, the beginning, and now to be in the presence of such vantage point, it was really quite wonderful. I've also been interested in books. Obviously, you know, everyone likes reading, but books for me have been physically a very interesting thing to look at. So one day I was looking at this book, El Greco. It's a painter, a book of his paintings, and I saw this gorgeous shimmering light falling off the page, and it struck me that maybe that effect could be a picture, and I made it, and I loved the effect a lot. Then I remember in 1993 thinking, maybe there are other book pictures to be made. So I made another one, and another one. And you know how it is when you know that children's book if you give a mouse a cookie. Yeah, and in fact, it works like that. The world works that if you start looking and paying attention to something, it's expansive. And I began to look at a lot of books and make all kinds of images that had something to do with the narrative of the books, but also their physicality, their architectural nature. This is not a very good slide, but this is Farewell to Arms by Hemingway. It's a very important book for me because in high school in New York, this terrific teacher helped me learn English by giving me a lot of Hemingway novels, and we would discuss it. And Hemingway, such a great writer to learn English with, because his words are simple. He's not an abstract writer like Thomas Pynchon or something, you know. His words are like simple. So I learned to get by in English through a lot of his novels. And then these are more book pictures. This is the first page from Lisa, help me. What? Tale of Two Cities, yeah. Which can also, this is the kind of first words that can apply to any era, but especially good now. The best of times and the worst of times. And it's lit from behind, so the idea of words leaking from behind was really interesting to me. Simple stuff. This is window light, a table, a book. And when you simplify things like that, then creativity can sort of have a field day in a way. You can, I wanted to make something interesting out of it, so maybe I made a 3-minute exposure while I rotated the book in a circle. Just like that. I mean, just simple. But I wanted to create the idea of the constellations sort of swirling. I always find funny books. In 1930 and 31, there were 5 thoughts, which sounds right. And some books are so beyond their bookness, so damaged, that they're just barely holding on to that title. The book Damaged by Water. After a lot of these book pictures, someone suggested that I illustrate Alice in Wonderland for a book. And I've always, I grew up in the 60s, so Alice was a very important book for a lot of us. if you know what I mean. Jefferson Airplane and stuff like that. So I decided to do something rather crude. which is to have cutouts made of Alice and have cardboard Alices and characters be represented in a world where books is sort of the landscape. So this is obviously the first image of the rabbit going down the hole. And I had fun drilling into books and doing things like that. All within the architecture of books. Paper seems to be a big concern for me. I love the idea that paper can be symbolic, like a book. It takes you to some other level. It can also exist in money. It's symbolic paper. It's just like a book. So for a while I was really interested in photographing money. And who doesn't think about it, right? From the poorest to the richest. We're all sort of, in some ways, enslaved by that idea. So this is a series of pictures. This is $1, 5. This is a new bill. It's 25. It's coming out soon. That's 25. That's $60. It's going to jump big now. It's $40,000. It's a dirty thing, isn't it? Okay, it's going to jump really big now. It's 40,000. This is $7 million. That's what it looks like. Now you're dying to ask, right? It's in my basement. No, it's not. In case there's only IRS people here. Something else that I've been working on is for this book that the Museum of Modern Art in New York. They usually every year they pair an artist with a writer to do a special edition book, and they thought Oliver Sacks, who's a terrific neurologist, and I would do something interesting. And there was a terrific book by Oliver Sacks called The Island of the Colorblind, where he goes to Micronesia and tries to solve this mystery of color blindness that beset the population there. Anyway, in the book, he talks a lot about cycads and ferns and weird vegetation, gorgeous, weird, strange, prehistoric stuff. And so I thought, well, am I going to take pictures of vegetation for this book? Then I thought about, this is a Fox Talbot picture. It's a photogram, and if a photogram is the simplest way you can make an image. In the darkroom, you take a piece of paper, put a leaf down, flash some light on it, and you get a kind of a cliche of it. This is also early work, and I was really inspired by this work. Then I thought about this terrific method of making images that a few French painters used in the 1850s. People like Millet and Corot, I mean, great painters, thought that they would incorporate photography into their works by taking glass, right, smoking it so that it would become dark, sooty, and on the glass they would do these beautiful drawings. So essentially they were making a hand negative out of glass. Then they would actually print it on photographic paper. So you had this beautiful combination of drawing and photography. So this is a negative by Corot that becomes that. But it's this great hybrid of painting and photography. This is another one. And this is some of the trees that Oliver Sacks talked about. Weird hybrid prehistoric ferns and cycads. So I thought I would then try to make my own cliché verre, which means glass picture. So I borrowed a lot of very sort of exotic ferns and, you know, cycads from places, and I decided to ink glass, 8 by 10 pieces of glass, ink it, let it dry a bit, and then press ferns and cycads on the ink itself at various stages to create a kind of an illusion of vegetation. So these are some of the pictures that I was able to make. Oh, so once I got a negative, I mean black ink pressings, sometimes 20 or 30 times to create density, I had a negative. And of course, you know, with a negative you can make a positive. So I had the images scanned at a very high resolution and make prints of it. So I'll show you some of the work that came out of it. Very different from any kind of work I've done before. My hands were dirty. You know, I was like a real artist, you know. It felt fun to be kind of scratching it when it wasn't good. Okay. In 2006, this is, I always, sorry, if you heard this story before, forgive me, but 2006 I got a call from this man who owns a palazzo in the Grand Canal in Venice, and you haven't been to Venice, you got to go because it's wonderful. So this guy, Alvise, calls me up and says, I've got a palazzo in Venice, and would you like to come and make some pictures here, camera obscura pictures, and, you know, we'll pay for everything and that kind of thing. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be in Detroit next week. No. Yeah, of course. So my wife, daughter, and I went to Venice and found a terrific bedroom in his place. And color began to play in my picture. So this is the picture. This is the picture that came out of it. So color began to be a very important thing for me, complicating it. Instead of Zen, now it's Rococo. It's just over the top. Then I went back the next year, and Salute, this church, was being worked on. And I thought, oh no, but it was interesting. It was like a whole new church. Then Alvise, who basically knows Venice in and out, said, you know, I know this is a Canaletto painting, but he said, I know the guy who works there, that window there. So that's the thing about Europe. You can actually look at a painting and go, yeah, Joe lives there. You know, it actually is like that. So we found the place. And I realized that Canaletto himself was probably on this floor looking at this, you know, this part of the plaza, Piazzetta, from that point of view. So I made a picture. And a few things have changed here. Instead of just the hole, I'm using a lens to make things sharper. I'm using color. And what else is new? It's right side up. Yeah, so I found a way to write it up, you know. So radical changes. But it really felt very painterly. And this is still film, which it took about 7 hours to make. These are not people. And those are kiosks, you know, just. But this is a terrible. Anyway, doesn't take it. Here is thousands of people lining up to get into the church. And then I found another place in Venice with a crazy apartment, decorated in Colombian jungle style on the Grand Canal. So you're seeing Grand Canal and the FARC, which kind of reminds me of this. Really like the idea of a room being complicated or a room being sort of made into something else, and that certainly was. Recent New York City pictures. Now this is myself, my sister, my parents, and cousins. But back there with the arrow is, that's the Plaza Hotel. Back then, we couldn't even get into the lobby. But just to show you that I grew up with this sense of New York being this eventual playground. So I made some pictures from the Plaza Hotel, looking at Central Park. And 3 seasons so far. Winter is not happening in the East, people. So I've missed winter. But this is summer, fall, and spring. I'm waiting for snow. This is another view that I've recently made. Times Square. Then this Manhattan Bridge. And now the last change that I've made in this photography is I no longer use film, which took from 5 to 7 hours to expose. It's the nature of film. Film doesn't respond to light when it's very low. It takes longer than you think. So now I'm using a digital back, which can make an exposure from 7 hours to 5, 10 minutes now, which is, for me, very dramatic change. First of all, I'm getting older, so I don't have the time, right? So that helps. But I'm also getting images that have a sense of a specific sense of time, light. So before I wouldn't have been able to make this kind of series. This is a morning view of the bridge, afternoon, and evening. And it was great to have the ability to, like the way Monet could record specific light with painting. Then some camera obscura pictures in Italy. This is the French Academy in Rome. Bizet apparently wrote Carmen in this room. This is the mayor's room in Rome, which looks onto the Forum. And now this is sort of the most recent incarnation of the camera obscura idea. This is a camera, it's a portable, sort of camera obscura, which people like Fox Talbot and even earlier, even before photography had been invented, people used. Essentially, this thing looked at the world through a very crude lens, but projected the image sort of straight up and then into a piece of glass. So if you put tracing paper on the glass, you could actually see mountains and houses or whatever. So it was possible for artists to draw things in perspective. Very useful device. And this is a typical artist trying to use a device like this to trace the world. This is the drawing that Fox Talbot made with such a device in 1835. And luckily for us, he was a terrible artist. I mean, this is just crude as hell. And this is when, in fact, he says to himself, I wish I could retain the image he was seeing on the glass. I wish I could keep this. In a sense, I want to make a photograph. And he went back to England and worked on the idea of fixing that image, which became photography in 1939. This was also a way to draw the world with these weird tent cameras. This is, again, before photography. A periscope type thing that would direct an image right onto your drawing pad and you could trace it. It was very hip. Everybody was doing it. So I thought, my assistant C.J. Heilig and I were thinking, wouldn't it be interesting to have, instead of rooms, why don't we have something that we can carry around and just put it anywhere we want? I mean, not the White House, but, you know. So why don't we, and this is some photographer coding film inside his tent. This is William Henry Jackson, one of the sort of great American photographers. His tent was not to make pictures, but to code film. But tents in the landscape have been around forever. So CJ and I came up with this weird thing. And it's a fairly portable tent, 14 feet in diameter, with a hole on the very top. And we worked this thing where a periscope-like optics shoots out of the hole, the center, and looks at the world. Instead of having a wall, now I have the ground. So this is our first experiment in Texas. It's a lot of work. I actually helped him out. I was filming, so I'm not. So this is the sort of the view that we had in this terrific West Texas landscape. Just gorgeous. And this is the image that happened. So onto the desert floor itself, an image gets projected. So instead of a wall, now I have the ground. So the idea of merging nearby landscape onto the stones and the grass and the twigs became just such a fun new way of looking at the world. And again, I've never seen that kind of, and again, this is all natural. This is not what my daughter can do in Photoshop in 10 seconds. You know, oh yeah, Texas, yeah, whatever. Right? It's not whatever. It's a lot of work carrying the tent around to make something naturally freaky. And it's fun to do it when you're there. It's extraordinary. You feel like you're in some alien world. So this is some others. This is in Maine. Big Bend National Park, which I love. This is the Mexico on the left, the US on the right. The Rio Grande in there. It's about 125 degrees inside the tent. And CJ and I almost passed out. It was. Then I thought also, why don't I take the tent to rooftops in New York City? Because rooftops have very interesting surfaces. And we went to Park Avenue, and there was a rooftop with pebbles. So this is looking east in New York. And of course, it looks like a Seurat painting. I mean, it's pixelated. And this is my sister and my cousin. For fun and to get away from the house, my parents went around Manhattan every weekend. That was our fun. So we must have gone hundreds of times. And this is a picture of mine. I love photographing bridges and the idea of New York, and New York just like I pictured it, So this is a recent picture from a rooftop on the Manhattan side looking at the Brooklyn Bridge. And you notice that there are clouds in there because of the digital technology now, short exposure. I'm able to actually get specific moments like clouds. which for me it's a big plus. A year later, we found a Russian who lives on the other side, on his rooftop. Then here's a thought. Well, am I limited to places? So this is a wonderful Francis Frith picture. Beautiful image. Albumin print. I mean, the best. So, but why not do that? Why not? So I'm hoping someday to, when Egypt gets a little cooler, in many ways, to make pictures like that, revisit important sites in the history of photography. These are some Italian tent camera pictures. We actually, it was crazy, we actually got permission to set this up in Florence in the midst of 1,000 tourists. They were looking at us like we're selling something, We should have sold something. So our view was of the baptistry. And this is from the outskirts of Florence. And Yellowstone and Grand Tetons, which we went recently to. This is a sidewalk near the Grand Tetons, so you get this pebbly surface. Terrific view, just set up there in this beautiful lake. I asked Amy, one of my assistants, to stand on the edge. She's in red there. This is a William Henry Jackson photograph of the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. One of the first people to actually see it. So I'm really liking the fact that I'm sort of in the trajectory of these people, William Henry Jackson and Thomas Moran, who made glorious paintings of this place. So we set it there, and this is what came out of it. Some new book pictures. A children's book, all the pages showing. A Farewell to Arms, again, that book keeps recurring to me. This is the first and last page of Farewell to Arms. Hopper book. The last page of Ulysses. James Joyce, sorry. A bad thing to do to a book. I don't know what this means. My shrink will probably say, oh, she really messed up here. It's like a pregnant book or something. So, a small book inside a large book. Dictionary. 2 intertwined dictionaries. And soon, I've been thinking about making pictures in different ways, especially cutting things out and making collage-like images. And thinking about some of these people, this guy Boulez was a really terrific architect in the 1780s. He made drawings of impossible architecture, just glorious and impossible. So I've been looking at this kind of apocalyptic work. And Diego Rivera, there's no one better in terms of mural work. The idea of collaging different aspects of a city, things that could not really be seen but sort of imagined, or the history of Mexico, all together in one kind of new collage. And this beautiful Benton, and never seen before, but this great painting that involves almost like a cutout idea of, industry. And Bruegel, again, impossible architecture. So, and especially this man, Gustave DORE, who I love, he made hundreds and hundreds of illustrations of Bible, the Divine Comedy, Romeo and Juliet. I mean, he crazy talented and dramatic as hell. Everything was like, super electric. So I've been looking at his work, and a man named PIRANESI, whose work is also from the 1750s, 60s, of sort of impossible Roman architecture invented, especially his prisons. So what I thought was that maybe I bought a lot of these cheap books, and I would excavate into the books, cutting, it's a new way for me to make pictures, and I'm quite into it. And so I also did some Piranesi cutouts, where this is about 10 of his prisons that are being cut into one another. So a new prison, if you will, has resulted. New cities. And this is a very recent one I just came up with. This is all Piranesi drawings or etchings that I've made into a kind of a metropolis. And think about why the ground in a lot of these pictures. Goes back to this early picture. My daughter, who's here, she was quite little with her monkey there, and my son. But I made this picture where I tried to imagine the ground being a kind of a house. And I love the picture because it has a kind of it's nearby. It's not Tibet, it's this place that I knew, and the ground having some kind of meaning below us. And how important it is in our psychology, how we understand the ground that we live in. This is an early picture by Jackson as well of the great, yeah, I mean, it's 1850 something. And here he is, just like people are actually very near it. And we actually got permission to do this. It was sort of weird, and this ranger was telling us when. So we were inside the tent, CJ and I are inside the tent going, let us know. And it's like, not yet. No, and he nailed it. And everyone was looking at us like, what kind of a picture is that? But it's a strange new way of narrating an event. And for me, that's important. To visit, I mean, Old Faithful has been photographed, 1 billion times? How to make a picture that makes it, at least for me, new. And that's important in my work. This is, we made 2 pieces in Joshua Tree 4 days ago. And we love Joshua Tree. God, heaven. This one. The next day it was too windy to photograph, but these 2 I'm really quite happy with. I want to end with something I've been doing the last week. I really like challenges of something very minimal. What to do with a bunch of paper. Rather than what's the meaning of the world, No, look at paper and see what could happen there. And I've been thinking about making pictures with something quite simple like that can have a sort of a meaning beyond the material. So this is 2 reams of paper. then I thought, you know, why don't I do a self-portrait with this technique? And it took me a while to figure out, and Amy, who's my assistant, she's compulsive, you know, I'm impulsive. And she's like, no, let's do it right. So I made this picture. This is my self-portrait, which is rather freaky. It's almost like Emperor Abe or something. But it felt like to take something this banal and to make it like architecture or, I don't know, marble. Then it struck me that maybe I really do believe that the idea of self is always connected to the materials of the world for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. There is a reception following at the Art Gallery, so don't miss on that. But Abe has generously volunteered the time here to...
$10 a question.
We're looking at it.
Anybody, just say it. I can't even see you so well, but just yell it out.
Can I ask you about your tent pictures?
Sure.
If what's coming through the top is landing specifically on the ground,
That's right.
how do you photograph the ground from an angle and have them be so...
No, that was a technical challenge that CJ and I had to sort of figure out. I mean, we're not right above it because I would give a shadow. So we're able to get just out of the light of, you know, the line of the light to be outside of it, and we stop down.
So are you skewing that? Is the angle skewed somehow in those images?
A little bit. We're actually able to get fairly flat, and then digitally we just kind of correct it a little bit, but it works. I mean, ideally it would be great to have it straight down, but it's just impossible. But I think we figure out the right angle. You know, we creep into it until we start seeing the shadow come in.
And one last question. How do you make, what material is your tent made out of? Have it be totally light-proof?
It's fairly thick plastic, and it's white on the outside, black on the inside. And it's made for observation. Made for burn. Yeah, and these people are doing weird stuff inside that you don't want to know about, so. Yeah. I'm sorry? 35? What are you, crazy? No. I'm using a digital camera bag called Phase 1. It's 40 megapixels, and with a medium format camera. So we have a laptop in there. We can see everything. It's very. You see it right away. So, no, 35. I did that 30 years ago.
Would you find that since you switched to digital that the highlights tend to be overexposed and that sort of thing?
No. Not if you're careful. Okay. No. Yes.
Regarding your camera, Obscura, how do you...
Are you the Jamaican?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's start with you. Do you physically, literally make a hole in somebody's wall? I mean, how does this happen?
Oh, no. No, I think I would have been on Facebook saying, do not let this guy in.
This is from the window.
No, just the window and plastic, and then we cut into the plastic. It's a lot easier that way.
What kind of film then is used to project the...
It's a Phase 1 back. The camera is a Mamiya medium format camera where the back sits in it. So it's basically just a digital file that we're making. But it's super straight. I'm not putting elephants flying in the sky. I mean, I'm a very straight photographer using a digital recording device, but of what I'm seeing. I'm not trying to put, crazy stuff in it. I'm just trying to be true to the facts.
You said you went from just the hole in the plastic to actually using a lens. Can you talk about the lenses that they use in the camera obscura?
I'll have to kill you. It's diopters. You can get diopters that will focus at certain distances. So, but mind you, it's taken me years and years to work this out. So, I don't like talking about because the technical stuff, while extremely important, was driven by an intellectual, artistic concern of mine. And when it becomes just, oh, use that and you're done, it cuts the elemental need to arrive at this technical solution. So it's a very hard thing to talk about because it doesn't quite explain my hunger for how I led to it. But anyway, yes.
You engaged a lot with the physicality of books, but I didn't see anything that engages with the words so much in terms of, there's always been a kind of historic conflict between pictures and what you say about them. And so I know, like, I think Helen is here tonight, and she's done a lot of work about this. So I just wanted to hear your take on...
About words?
About words and how they tend to fight with images.
Well, I mean, actually, it's interesting because I've recently begun to photograph very close-up words, called American words, like Abraham Lincoln writing about slavery in New Orleans. I got this, well, I didn't get it, it is a letter that exists where he's sort of saying, what's going on here? And I photographed a very close-up slaves, Abraham Lincoln writing about slaves. And it's very hard to make it interesting. I'm still trying to make the physicality of the writing be visually interesting, but it's hard. So I'm struggling with that. So I don't know if that answers it.
How big a hole does it take for the camera obscura when you were just doing it without the lens?
Something like that.
So, what made you decide to use a camera obscura instead of a pinhole camera? And also, why not do multiple exposure?
Multiple exposures, how? What do you mean?
Taking one photo of something and then take another photo of the same particular...
And just do, in the computer, just sandwich the two?
Yeah, it's multiple exposure. Say,
yeah, just stay at home, smoking dope and just like, oh, yeah, the pyramids and, LA, yeah, whatever. I've left instructions that if I do that, I should be shot in the head. No, I'm not interested in that kind of easy access to craziness. I want to work like Henry, Jackson, to arrive at something quite contemporary. But I think it's important that the truth, some kind of truth, is established. For me, it's important. So it wouldn't be interesting if I put the pyramids in Los Angeles. In fact, we're tired of that shit. Aren't we? I mean, every ad we see is crazy, crazier, and crazier. And it detaches our sensibility to the world to make craziness just kind of a product, So I'm trying to do something quite, hard to get at, but so anyway. Yes?
Why have you chosen never to include people in your recent work?
Well, there's people around the All Faithful. And there's Amy on the left. I'm not that interested in people. I mean, as subject. I mean, for me, I love portraits. I love Nicholas Nixon, who's a neighbor of mine. I mean, I love his portraits and all that, but I'm just not drawn to... I like the physics of the world and how it works. I mean, my self-portrait, that's me. I may begin to do portraits in that style, but I don't like the idea that people are so changeable. I like that gravity works in a certain way and it's dependable, and people are not. Yes.
What was your favorite location to shoot?
Favorite location? I loved Yellowstone. That was just incredible. I mean, it's such a great park. That I'm going to do more parks. We're going to Yosemite next, the Grand Canyon, and a couple other places. So anyway, yeah, yes.
Have you tried to put your tent in the middle of the water and reflect whatever you see in the water?
I've thought about that, and it's very hard because if it's too obviously, if it's too deep, we'll sink.
It's like this deep.
Yeah, hard because the surface of water doesn't really reflect an image. It has to be quite shallow. But I'm thinking about creating a kind of a pool in the middle. That would be interesting. Or even a little fire.
Or like put some lights inside of the water that we can see better.
Yeah, no, water would be very interesting. It's a challenge, but thank you. It's a good idea. Yeah.
How much of your craft is in relation to personal reward, in contrast to the prevalence of a DSLR and the populace creating everyone as a photographer? What's your take on that?
That everyone is a photographer?
No, that you spent so much time developing this tent.
Yeah.
And now in relation to your imagery is rewarded because of that tent. Like, your take on that?
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. You know who Chuck Close is? It's a terrific painter.
Yes.
But he once heard him talk, and he said, the best. Now I'm going to end with this. The best method is to start. Everyone starts together. Lots of people want to be artists. When you get to a crossroad, take the harder road, and then you will have fewer people with you. And then the next one, take the harder one, and then you'll have even fewer. I believe in that. That I'd rather make something that is just, that it takes a lot of work, but it's worth it at the end. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.